antipsychotic were older, had later age of onset, more duration of illness, and had received treatment for a longer period of time. This is the breakup of what kind of antipsychotic these patients have received, and among a typical group, if you see, risperidone is the most common antipsychotic they have received, and among 50 patients, 9 were having tardive dyskinesia. Among the typical group, it is chlorpromazine, fluphenazine, and combination of fluphenazine and chlorpromazine were the most common antipsychotic. Now, one of the important findings in this study is that among the 90 patients who were on second generation antipsychotic, only 16 were exposed to typical antipsychotic in their lifetime. So we had a pure sample of around 74 patients. And similarly, in typical antipsychotic group, we had only 4 patients who were exposed to a typical antipsychotic. So we had 66 patients who were purely on a typical antipsychotic. Now, when we compared another thing is the prevalence of tardive dyskinesia was found to be 26.4%. So out of 160 patients, 42 patients had tardive dyskinesia. Now, when we compared first generation antipsychotic with second generation antipsychotic, we found that first generation antipsychotic has got more propensity, that is, they are statistically significant compared to second generation antipsychotic for the development of tardive dyskinesia. P-value was around 0.04. Similar thing persisted when we compared pure samples, that is, those purely on FGA compared to those purely on SGA. Now, when we did logistic regression to know what are the exact predictors of tardive dyskinesia, and we, as I have mentioned in the previous slide, the covariates which we have used, we have included first generation antipsychotic and second generation antipsychotic both as covariates. And we found that the difference of TD between SGA and FGA disappeared after adjusting for important covariables in regression analysis. So as we did not find the difference between FGA and SGA for the occurrence of tardive dyskinesia after regression analysis, we reanalyzed the sample after matching between FGA and SGA for age, gender, and duration of treatment, which are the most common confounding factors. Then we got a sample of 50 patients and 50 controls, and we found that the statistical significance which we have achieved before matching, that has been lost. So there was no statistically significant difference between FGA and SGA for the occurrence of tardive dyskinesia. Similarly, the severity also did not differ between SGA with TD and FGA with TD. So severity, if you score on Ames mean score or Ames score based on 7 body regions or TDRS mean score, it remains similar. Now, coming to the third aim of the study, that is the predictors of tardive dyskinesia. On univariate analysis, we found that patients in the TD group were older, they were having younger age of onset, the duration of illness was more, they have received more total antipsychotic dose, and the duration of treatment was more. Also, we have found that the past history of EPS and anticholinergic use were also statistically significant on univariate analysis. So when we did logistic regression, because on univariate analysis there will be so many factors which will predict tardive dyskinesia. But if we do logistic regression, we will remove all the confounding factors and we will get only the factors which are responsible for the prediction of tardive dyskinesia. So we found that it is only age, total antipsychotic dose in cumulative CPZ equivalence, and intermittent neuroleptic treatment which are the factors which predicted tardive dyskinesia. Coming to the discussion part of the study, we found that the frequency of probable TD in Indian patient is around 26.4%, which is similar to elsewhere in the world. The most startling finding of this study was that, according to this study, there is no statistically significant difference between atypical and typical antipsychotic for the occurrence of TD. There are previous few studies. If you go through the studies by review by Correll et al. In 2004, which is published in American Journal of Psychiatry, and another review he has done between the studies of between 2004 to 2008 in Current Opinion of Psychiatry, he has shown that there is a less occurrence of TD with atypicals as compared to typical antipsychotic. So there were certain pitfalls in these studies. Like, they have used predominantly haloperidol as the comparator in these studies, which is a very high potency antipsychotic. Second is, there were certain methodological biases that they could not differentiate between withdrawal emergent dyskinesia and persistent dyskinesia. Third is, most of the studies which were included in this review were industry sponsored. And we all know that industry sponsored studies are known to favor manufacturer's product, which is a phenomenon similar to other branches of medicine. Our current study finding is in line with the observational studies by Halliday et al. In 2002, Lee et al. In 2005, and the randomized trial, that we all know that KT, Cutlass, UFEST, and the trial by Woods et al. In Yale University. Now, among these 4 trials, the 3 trials, that is by Lieberman et al., KT, then Cutlass, and a trial by Woods et al., most of them have included chronic schizophrenia patients. All have been exposed to first generation antipsychotic previously. So, only one trial, that is by Kahan et al. In 2008, it is published in Lancet. He has shown that first episode psychosis patient, he has studied tardive dyskinesia and first episode psychosis patients. So he has shown that the occurrence of tardive dyskinesia with a typical antipsychotic is similar to those occurring in typical antipsychotic. Another meta-analysis by Dutt et al. In 2003 has shown that there is no difference in the risk of extrapyramidal symptom between low potency typical and atypical antipsychotic other than clozapine. Now coming to the predictors of tardive dyskinesia. Age is found to be advancing age is one of the most consistently established risk factor, and the similar finding was there in our study also. So what was the reason for the advancing age to be responsible as a putative factor for the development of tardive dyskinesia? So it has been shown that there is an interaction between drug-induced changes in the receptors in the striatum and aging-related degenerative effects in the nigrostriatal system. So if you expose them to the antipsychotic and there is a D2 downregulation is there, there should be readily exhibits of neuronal sprouting should be there, but it doesn't happen in older patients. Second most important is intermittent neuroleptic treatment. There was previous theories were there that we should give drug holidays to the patients and we should give targeted and high dose antipsychotic treatment for patients with schizophrenia to get rid of this movement disorder. But then this study indicates that it is not a proper protocol. So we should follow a long-term, low-dose neuroleptic treatment rather than targeted or intermittent neuroleptic treatment. The same thing which is put forth in the third point is that those who receive higher total cumulative antipsychotic dose have a more propensity to develop tardive dyskinesia. The limitations of this study was that this is a cross-sectional study, and as we all know that tardive dyskinesia is a vexing and waning condition. So we need a longitudinal study to know exactly the prevalence and incidence of tardive dyskinesia. Now, what are the implications of this study? The most important implication of this study is that atypical antipsychotic do cause tardive dyskinesia. And also, as we all know that atypical antipsychotics were introduced, and it was known that metabolic syndrome is the EPS, extrapyramidal syndrome of atypical antipsychotic. But we know that it is not so now. So atypical antipsychotic do cause metabolic syndrome, they do cause tardive dyskinesia. So we have to strike a balance between medications which will neither cause patients stiff nor stout and improve the management of patients with schizophrenia. The cost effectiveness of the so-called atypical antipsychotic needs a serious reconsideration. In India also and in Western studies also, we need a serious reconsideration regarding cost effectiveness because they are very costly, atypical antipsychotics. So the thing which comes in mind is that are we buying the metabolic syndrome in the disguise of less extrapyramidal side effects? Now the most important, another factor is that as we have seen that it is not the neuroleptic which is the only risk factor for the development of tardive dyskinesia. We have seen age, then intermittent neuroleptic treatment, then total antipsychotic dose. Other than that, in various other studies, we have seen that past history of extrapyramidal syndrome, anticholinergic use, they all have been shown to be the putative factors for the development of tardive dyskinesia. So, one need not to view the neuroleptic treatment as the sole risk factor producing TD, but to consider the impact of neuroleptic treatment in a multidimensional interactive system, where its propensity to cause tardive dyskinesia can be modified by patient and other treatment variables. The final conclusion is that Indian patients with schizophrenia and long-term antipsychotic treatment have a high risk of tardive dyskinesia. Particularly individuals who are older, have intermittent antipsychotic treatment, and have a high total cumulative antipsychotic dose. At the end, what I can say is that this is a preliminary study. We need a longitudinal study to clarify exactly the risk and prognostic factor, course, and outcome of tardive dyskinesia. Thank you.